again, these Syrian anti-government armed elements proceeded to the position of Filipino peacekeepers and in turn demanded that they surrender their firearms to the Syrian armed elements. Our Filipino peacekeepers remained vigilant and did not heed to their demands. We remain in protecting our positions, and we will not give any of our firearms nor our position. The standoff stemmed from the demands of the rebels for us to surrender our firearms. So right now, we have still encamped in our positions, and that we will not heed to their demands, and that we want to assure everyone that the protection of our troops is a priority for our government, and that all efforts are being made in order that their safety and security will be ensured. It hasn't changed. The standoff is still there. We are hopeful that negotiations will give a peaceful resolution to that.
Syrian activists are reporting clashes and shelling in the Golan Heights, where a group of UN peacekeepers are currently being held hostage by Syrian rebels. The United Nations is demanding the immediate release of the 21 peacekeepers. The militants say they're using the observers as human shields and will hold them until Syrian government forces pull back from a nearby village. RT's Middle East correspondent Paula Slear has the details.
All 21 UN personnel were unarmed. They're all from the Philippines, and we've heard from the Philippines Foreign Office, who has demanded their immediate release. The Philippines government says that they are being treated well, that negotiations are underway to try and secure their release. The militants are admitting that they took these UN personnel to try and prevent an attack by Assad's loyalists. In other words, what we're seeing is that the rebel forces are using this UN team as human shields. Now, the UN has, of course, condemned this action. We've heard criticism, particularly from Moscow at the United Nations.
There is no reason at all, under any circumstances, any kind of a sick imagination to try to harm those people. So clearly gross disrespect for United Nations, gross disrespect of international norms of behavior.
Now, the United Nations is currently also involved in negotiating their immediate release. According to the United Nations, its team were on a regular mission in the area. We're talking about an area not far from the Israeli-Syrian border. It happened earlier on Wednesday when they were taken hostage.
UN teams came under fire from the Syrian rebels last year, and a group were also seized near the Jordanian border this January. Well, let's get more on the hostage crisis now from Jason Liosatos. He's activist and radio host at Global Peace Radio. Jason, the US and the EU, they've urged the immediate release of these hostages. Do you think the rebels will listen?
Well, the thing is, we've got to first put into context what the rebels are. There's obviously some nice rebels there, but the Syrian rebels are literally murder tools for the US and the West. So they're throwing money, I think $60 million now at the rebels, and there's chaos ensuing, obvious. And the UN kidnap is just consequences and feedback loops of lack of vision and wisdom. It's chaos.
In other words, this is backfiring on the Western support there, because it seems that these rebels are totally out of control. Indeed, I even spoke to somebody from the Syrian National Coalition who said he's urging them to release the hostages, but they seem to be going their own way here.
Yeah, because it's the new way. It's the new way of waging war by the West and the US. You fund the rebels. They're people who are really angry. You give them what they want. You know, if I give you a rocket launcher and you kill someone, then it's aiding and abetting. It's still murder. So you're dealing with people who are really angry, and it's chaos. But I truly believe that's the idea. They create their outcomes from the chaos. This is what they want. Create chaos is the new way of war. Create chaos in a country. When it's all gone mad and it settles down, then you go in and get what you wanted in the first place, and there's no bodies coming home in coffins. There's no public outcry. It's very clean. It's cheaper. And this is what we're seeing. It's disgraceful behavior, and it's terrorism by the US and the West. It is. It's a fact.
Isn't there not still a genuine grassroots rebellion and uprising by the Syrian people against the Assad regime, and they want help?
Yes, I do believe that there is. And Assad is no angel, obviously, but and I think this is the new thing we're seeing in all the countries, Egypt, Tunisia, all these places. The people rise up against the dictators, and then of course the West comes in, and I think now what's happening, the people know when they rise up that they'll get help. Eventually, and unfortunately, yes, the people want change, but I keep saying to people, it's no different to if people rose up against Obama. Assad's no angel, but he's created far less crimes against humanity than any of the Western governments, that's for certain. And I don't blame the people for wanting... Go on, sorry.
Can you put all the onus on the West? We're seeing a lot of support from the Arab League now. They're saying they will actually help now arm the rebels. And many Gulf states and Arab states are supporting the rebels, so it's not just Western countries.
No, it's not. It's not just Western countries, obviously. But what is the really sad thing is that each country that's contributing to the uprising is looking at the way that they're going to benefit from it when it all dies down. This is the sad thing. So we're seeing ethical compromises on a huge scale here, and people are getting used to it more and more. And you know, it's very, very sad what's happening there. And unfortunately, it's always used as an end result.
But Jason, sorry to ask you, I've got to ask you, how will they benefit when actually the danger is if Assad goes, you're going to end up with a rogue state run by extremists?
Well, this is the thing, and this is where lack of vision and wisdom come in. Unfortunately, it's all about short-term greed and gain and an insatiable lust for power and control, and often that blinkers your wisdom and vision for an outcome. In the end, it's all about short-term outcomes, and they're not looking at the feedback loops, the consequences of their actions now, which, like the UN kidnapping, there's worse to come. The loops are coming back, and they're going to knock our teeth out. And unfortunately, that greed dulls off and chokes off our ethics and morals, and we're seeing ethical compromises now, which is one of humanity's greatest threats, in my opinion.
Jason Liosatos, radio host at Global Peace Radio, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Good to hear your thoughts.
Should Israel withdraw its military from the Jordan Valley and rely on international forces for its security? Some politicians and diplomats around the world say yes. But 70% of Israelis say no. Who's right? Egypt. After the Suez Crisis, the United Nations Emergency Force, UNEF, is deployed in the Sinai Peninsula. Its mission: securing the cessation of hostilities, ensuring freedom of navigation in the Strait of Tiran, and serving as a buffer between Israel and Egypt. However, in May 1967, Egypt masses its army on Israel's border and closes the Strait of Tiran. UNEF retreats. The stage is set for the outbreak of the Six-Day War. Lebanon, 1978. After repeated armed attacks against Israel by terrorist organizations operating from southern Lebanon and Israeli defensive actions, the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, is established. Its mission: restoring peace and security and the effective authority of the Lebanese government. However, UNIFIL fails to stop the flow of hostile forces from entering southern Lebanon and fails to stop the terrorist attacks against Israel. Two wars ensue in 1982 and 2006. In 2000, UNIFIL troops observe Hezbollah's cross-border attack on Israel and the kidnapping of 3 Israeli soldiers, but do nothing to stop the attack. In 1983, Iran orders Hezbollah to attack the multinational force in Beirut. 241 American servicemen and 58 French paratroopers are killed. The multinational force withdraws completely within 6 months. 2006. UNIFIL is upgraded with European troops and weapons in order to implement UN Security Council Resolution 1701. Its mission: to stop Hezbollah activity south of the Litani River and help implement a weapons embargo on the organization. However, UNIFIL does nothing to stop the rearmament of Hezbollah.
We are at a point now where Hezbollah has far more rockets and missiles than most governments in the world.
Gaza, 2005. After Israel pulls out of Gaza, European monitors are stationed on the Gaza-Egypt border. Their mission: to prevent weapons smuggling into Gaza. However, in 2006, as Hamas begins its takeover of Gaza, the Europeans flee their positions. Iranian and Libyan weapons flow into the arsenals of Hamas, Islamic Jihad and Al-Qaeda affiliates and are fired at Israeli population centers. By June 2007, their operations are officially suspended. Syria. The United Nations Disengagement Observer Force, UNDOF, is established in the Golan Heights following the Yom Kippur War. Its mission: to maintain the ceasefire between Israel and Syria. However, in 2013, as the Syrian civil war intensifies, Austria, Croatia, India and the Philippines retreat. The repeated failure of international forces to maintain peace and security goes well beyond the Middle East. Peacekeeping forces from the US and Europe dispatched to Somalia, Bosnia and Rwanda have ultimately retreated when attacked, allowing a bloodbath to follow. Since 1967, the Jordan Rift Valley has served as a formidable geographic barrier protecting Israel and the front line of its defense in the east. The Israeli army has been deployed along its steep slopes, thwarting terrorist infiltration and deterring potential attacks from hostile armies. This critical zone cannot be turned over to international forces that have consistently proven to be ineffective, unreliable, and quick to retreat from conflict zones. Israel's national ethos has always been one of self-reliance, and it has never requested that its allies shed their soldiers' blood for its defense. History leads us to the unmistakable conclusion: Israel must defend itself by itself.